do you want to make an attempt to describe the situation we find ourselves in right now?
Well, it's in the evening. It's dark outside. There's some warm tungsten-colored lamps around us. We have some recording equipment with us, which we use to record our podcast, known to the world as Obscurigami, a journal of the obscure. An audio journal, excuse me.
An audio journal of the obscure, pointlessly educational. That's
another thing that we
say about this podcast.
Right.
Overwhelmingly unpopular.
That's a good one.
Ranked in the top 50,000 podcasts.
I don't know.
That's really. We might not even
be. That's really optimistic.
We're probably not in the top 50,000.
No, I wouldn't think so. I would like to think that we're in the bottom 50,000 of podcasts.
Well, that's definitely
that would be
true.
Moving up in the world,
right? That's probably. So,
this is a podcast where we make a lot of jokes about our podcast and how obscure it is.
Yeah, I wonder. It's banter.
Yeah.
Banter. There's some topics, there's some banter.
It's meta banter, though.
Some people, they come for the banter. You know, they might not care about Jonathan C. Grenup or Northrup or whoever we're talking about today. I don't really remember. Benjamin C. Grenup, that's his name.
That's who we're talking about today?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll dispense with the banter then, and go ahead and start talking about this Grenup.
Well, unless the banter is what the people are here for, and then
right.
But I guess to just skip ahead, if that's...
I think the only way we can know that is if we do some like market research,
like a poll or something,
like a survey.
Right. Yeah.
Let us know if you're interested in taking our survey.
Here's what I'll tell you to do. If you like the banter, download this episode twice. And if you are here for the topics, only download it once. And then we'll tally it up. Okay, all right.
Take our survey for a chance to win absolutely nothing at all.
Yes.
Twice.
Yeah. A chance to win a free copy of the next episode. All right. Benjamin. Today we're gonna talk about a topic, a fella
topic
who bears the same moniker as you. His name was Benjamin C. Grenup. So I stumbled across this situation in researching activities in Washington D.C. My wife and I recently made a trip to Washington D.C.
I hope you had fun.
Spent a few days there. It was very enjoyable. Walked around museums mostly. Mm-hmm. And I was, looking for offbeat sort of stuff to do. We didn't do anything offbeat, but nonetheless I looked. And I came across this very peculiar monument that exists in Washington, D.C. And then in my further research, came to realize that it's probably one of the most peculiar monuments that exists possibly in the world, or at least in the U.S., with some stipulations. I'll get to that later. But Benjamin C. Grenup was a firefighter in Washington, D.C. in 1856, or 1856 was the year of his death. But he was a part of the Columbia Fire Company No. 1. Mm-hmm. And in the early 1800s, fire companies were just starting to be developed. So they were pretty new. In D.C., prior to that time, all they had was a law that required building owners to have a leather bucket. I think it was maybe one per building or one per story per building.
Just somewhere on the premises?
Right. Yeah, that way you could have your bucket chains and put out fires. Eventually, people started to realize that wasn't really adequate, and so they started to form fire companies. And so this was kind of in the early days of fire companies. Fire engines at this time were still, or at least the ones that they were using in Benjamin C. Grenup's Columbia Fire Company number 1 were hand pull fire engines. So the firemen would actually themselves pull the fire engine, no horses or anything like that.
Right.
So long story short, age 24, young chap, Benjamin C. Grenup, he's killed in action, killed in the line of duty, rushing to put out a fire. He is run over by his own fire engine, pulled by his own fire comrades, fellow firemen. And he's run over. The men realize what's happened, and he dies a few minutes later.
Great Scott.
Yeah, this was for a long time considered the first recorded instance of a fireman dying in action in the United States.
Wow.
That since seems suspicious. They said something at his funeral about this not having happened in a long time, which makes it seem like there probably was other such instances.
Right. And clearly people would have died in fires.
Right. People died in fires.
Fire-related accidents.
Yeah. Surely, firefighting is pretty dangerous. You can imagine firemen probably died before this in fighting fires. But his particular instance was quite unusual, getting run over by the fire truck itself. Fire engine pulled by his own men.
How many men would it take to pull one of these?
4 or 5 maybe.
Okay.
So this leads us to the Benjamin C. Grenup Monument, or more casually known as the Runover Fireman Monument. So he's at the Glenwood Cemetery now. This obelisk monument was erected over his tomb, and it was sculpted by Benjamin Rousseau. Another Benjamin.
Another
sculpted
of my
it.
relatives.
Little is known about this sculptor. He was possibly Belgian.
Okay.
Other than that, really nothing is known about him.
So this is the person that sculpted his tombstone or the monument?
The
or
monument.
Are those the same
No,
thing?
that's the same thing. The monument is over top of his tombstone.
Okay. So is this tombstone in the middle of a graveyard, or is it kind of close to the street?
It is in a cemetery.
Okay.
Right. So it's not a monument in the sense of the Washington Monument.
Right.
It is in a...
It's not a publicly maintained...
Is
it? Is
it? I believe it is. Yeah, and you can go and visit it and see it.
Okay.
And it's in a public cemetery.
Right.
I believe is what it is. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But I will record it for
posterity.
I will place it onto this podcast, which who knows how long it'll exist until the internet ruptures. But anyway, on this monument, it contains several things. On the west side is inscribed the names of the monument committee, C. Kaufman, W. P. Hicks, and P. Kraft. So they wanted their names on there, as you would if you made the monument.
If you were part of a committee like that.
The south side is signed with the sculptor's name. The north side has some information about Benjamin, age 24, killed in the discharge of his duty May 6th, 1856. This monument is erected by the Columbia Engine Company number 1, which, by the way, is still an engine company to this day by a slightly different name, to perpetuate the memory and noble deeds of a gallant fireman, a truer, nobler, trustier heart, more loving or more loyal, never beat within the human breast.
Wow.
There's some other information, but the most interesting part are the reliefs that, or specifically a relief that depicts quite the scene on the side of this.
I hope that
this monument.
People have half as many nice things to say about me after I kick the bucket.
Yeah.
Or after I get run over by
a fire engine. Well,
whichever comes first.
You're going to have to be creative because he's already got truer, nobler, trustier, more loving, more loyal
I mean, gallant.
Gallant.
You're running out of.
This guy
adjectives.
must have been,
Yeah.
at age 24. So on the left side, we've got kind of this like cross of an axe and some fire tools.
It looks kind of like a fireman's axe crossed with a Viking axe, like a battle axe.
Yeah. Pretty, standard stuff you might see on a monument like this.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently this insignia is used by
the fire company?
various fire companies throughout history. Also, all these photos are on the Wikipedia page. I'll link to it in the show notes. You really should take a look at the pictures. It's kind of important to this. So this relief is probably what leads to the fame of this monument. On one side, on the back of the monument, there's a relief of Benjamin's scene of death. And you can see very clearly 4 firemen, or 2 of them kind of unknowingly pulling the fire engine. One sort of realizing that they've hit some sort of bump or obstacle in the road. And then you can see poor Benjamin Grenup there lying under the wheel of the fire engine,
writhing in agony,
looking pretty worse for the wear. And then another one of his firemen just with his hands up in the air, probably exclaiming in surprise, and he looks a little worried about this situation. So it's quite the scene. It's quite the scene and quite graphically depicted.
The pose of the gentleman at the back
is really
opens up a ton of opportunities for creative graffiti. I mean, just the captions that you could place, and there's even plenty of space at the top to add speech bubbles. You could insert plenty of comments into this man's mouth. It's truly remarkable. Bas relief.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. So, not only is this the only tombstone I've ever come across that depicts the death of the person in there.
It doesn't look particularly noble either.
No, not at all.
It looks like this man was killed in an accident because his comrades were incompetent.
Yeah.
Is what this picture screams.
No, like this guy right here in the front is almost smiling. He looks quite jovial. He's just, going to save a fire.
I mean, this seems almost medieval. It reminds me of like the medieval depictions of the saints being, mutilated and killed in various ways.
Yeah.
But all the characters have very neutral facial expressions.
Right.
Or even serene
religious
sort of expressions on their faces, despite the fact that they're boiling someone in oil.
Yeah. No, it really has that sort of quality. So
I guess that's what they were going for?
I don't know. This begs the question, what were they thinking? The committee that commissioned this, apparently they thought it was a good enough idea that they put their names on the monument.
Right. But the identity of the artist is somewhat mysterious.
Yeah, the identity of the artist is not much is known about him. Not much is really known about Benjamin Grenup or his fellow firemen, or really much surrounding this situation.
Yeah.
At least that I was.
I mean, do we know
able to dig up
what was on fire? Do we know how he came to fall beneath the wheel?
No,
none of that information.
None of that information is preserved. At least that I was able to stumble across in
your research,
few days of research.
Remarkable.
Yeah. So the only sort of lead I could uncover as far as to what may have inspired this sort of, I guess, glorification, because you're right, it almost is depicting him as sort of a martyr. Mm-hmm. This sort of glorification of his death is the fact that at this time fire companies apparently were very competitive. And they would kind of vie for territory, and they treated it as a competition. That climate may have led to sort of the self-aggrandizement of their profession or their company or whatever, that they felt this type of monument was necessary or a good idea. Or
were firefighters in these early days volunteers?
He was a volunteer firefighter, yes. Oh, it does. They do know that they were en route to a fire at Shreve's Stable on 7th Street, but that's about it. So I don't know. It's possible that the fever pitch of competition led to them.
Yeah. A lot of times in volunteer efforts too, there's a stronger sense of pride,
right?
Because people are doing what they're doing
voluntarily,
on purpose, for the sake of doing it, not for the sake of pay or anything like that.
And it makes sense to honor the life of a 24-year-old who's killed voluntarily trying to help other people.
Right.
The fact that they just chose to do it in such a sort of graphic but simultaneously hilarious way is a little head scratching.
It is.
But
well, I hope that the good Mr. Grenup, if he's aware in whatever afterlife he's in of what happened as a result of his death, I hope that he feels satisfied or happy in some way.
Yeah.
I wonder what his, friends and relations thought of it when they saw it unveiled.
Yeah, that was a question I had, and I can't imagine they were like thrilled about it. I don't know. I mean, the modern equivalent would be like if you had a photo of like the crumpled car somebody died in, and like you put that on,
like laser engraved onto your
headstone. I don't know. It's odd. So this, an odd thing. I was worried that a single monument that we don't know much about might not make for a full episode. So I did some digging to try to find what other kind of strange, bizarre monuments might be out there in the world. And it really led me to find that there's not that many like this, at least that kind of make you think like, what were they thinking? There's a lot of strange monuments out there, but most of them are intentionally strange.
Right.
Modern art type pieces or things that were made
intended to get your
with
attention.
the intention of subverting the norms.
Right.
This one I think is unique in that it seems entirely sincere, but is still pretty bizarre.
It's unintentionally.
Yeah. It's the room.
Hilarious.
It's the room of monuments, really, I think. I did, however, come across one other, not technically a monument, but sort of sculpture situation that I think is worth mentioning because it's humorous.
By all means.
This is...
Far be it from us on the Obscurigami podcast to do anything for a cheap laugh.
Yeah. This is the Chained Rock in Pineville, Kentucky. Pineville, Kentucky has a boulder on a mountain beside their city town that kind of looms over the town, hangs over the town. It's not directly over the town, but it does look like from the perspective of the town, it does look like if this boulder were to come off of the mountain, it would roll right into the town.
Right.
Probably be pretty disastrous if it did happen.
I would imagine so.
So in 1993, there was a chain, a 3,000-pound chain, hauled to the top of the mountain, and it extends now from another point on the mountain across a gap to the boulder, and seemingly holds the boulder in place from ever slipping loose and crushing the town below. The story behind why this chain came to be there is quite interesting. The story is that people in the town told their children that the rock was chained in order to ease their fears about the rock tumbling and crushing the town.
Well, I would imagine if you looked up as a child, and
yeah,
saw
it would
a
be
huge rock.
Apparently, it was a common enough problem that it was commonplace within the town to just tell your children, "Oh, the rock is chained.
It's all right.
So
they
can sleep.
Little Johnny.
They can sleep at night. You know."
Right.
This story must have been passed around for quite a few years until finally in 1993 they decided to make a 3,000-pound chain, cut it in half, haul it up the mountain with mules, assemble it at the top, and actually chain the rock to the mountain in I guess monument to this legend. Their commitment to the legend was such that they put on the plaque describing the chain that the current chain replaced a previous chain.
Oh my!
Which didn't actually ever exist.
Wow!
So the legendary chain was replaced by the real chain, and the plaque attests to that to this day.
Heavens to Betsy!
So it's a small little bonus round, Obscurigami bonus round.
That's quite a remarkable little piece of American folklore there.
Here, I'll
Do we have
I'll show you.
Image? There it is.
Yep.
It's a rock with a chain on it. Chain's looking kind of rusty.
Yeah,
but it's still there.
It's probably time to replace the chain eventually.
Do you have a photo that shows it in juxtaposition with the town?
I think I might here, and that's a different angle. That's where it's connected. There's the town, so you can see.
Yeah, you can
kind
see.
of. Yeah, there's none that you can't. I guess you can't really see the chain from the town per se.
I thought you were gonna say that when all the people that heard all their lives that the rock was chained found out that there wasn't a chain, they were like, well, we have to put a chain up now.
Well, we don't really know. That might be what happened. Apparently, the story was going around for quite some time before they eventually decided to put a chain there. Yeah. So maybe it was children who had been told it was chained growing up, and then eventually they were like, well,
I wonder if it was used as a disciplinary tool. Like, be good, do your chores, or the rock will fall on you.
It's going to fall. Yeah, crush the whole town.
Kind of like a boogeyman scenario.
Yeah, it may have been. Who knows?
Fascinating.
It's over 100 feet long. And
the chain or the rock?
The chain, yeah. And you can hike up there. There's a trail that goes up to it. You can see it. Read the plaque. Yeah, we'll send our operatives. If you're near Pineville, Kentucky, maybe you live in Pineville, Kentucky, maybe you were told the rock is chained so that you can sleep at night as a child. Write to us and let us know.
Please do.
Obscurigami@gmail.com or info@obscurigami.com.
We should definitely add this to our list of... if we ever create like an Obscurigami world tour.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, we could have like, you go to Attu Island, you go to see the Runover Fireman Monument in DC. You go to
see the
Pineville,
Rock.
Kentucky to see the Chained Rock. What are some other things? Physical locations.
That we can travel to. What was that country in South America that didn't actually exist?
We
could send people there.
To the modern day equivalent. Or we could just send them there. Maybe they'll die in a boating accident, like the people who were actually sent there. That's part of, to complete the Obscurigami tour, you have to attempt to set sail to wherever it was.
Right.
And
if you find the place, we'll give you $200,000.
Yes. And if you...
The land is plentiful. The natives are friendly.
People should go quick and complete the tour now before we're at like hundreds of episodes, and then it's just... way too insane.
Then it would be...
It's already pretty difficult because just getting to Attu Island alone is going to be...
Or we could organize like an Obscurigami cruise where we like cruise to all these places.
Yeah, that's great.
We can do a cruise with, obviously we wouldn't be able to get a whole cruise ship to Kentucky. We could potentially, depending on how many of our listeners are interested in this idea, we could just get like a little pontoon boat.
Right.
And you and me could fit in there, maybe 2 or 3 other people.
Yeah, and we could do like live shows.
Hardcore fans, yeah. We could do live shows on the road.
Yeah.
This is a great idea.
See, that's why I'm very excited about the future of this podcast. Because a lot of podcasts, they think too small.
Yeah.
You know, they start merchandising.
Right.
They have a Patreon or something.
Right.
And it's like, okay, you get a t-shirt.
Right.
Not Obscurigami.
No.
Obscurigami.
World Cruise.
World Cruise.
Pontoon boat.
$1,000 backer level on Patreon.
Bring your own
You
horse.
get a free trip on the cruise to Attu Island. So
I think that's great.
just keep your eyes open, keep your ears peeled for that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
listeners, I would say, because we got a lot of ideas.
Keep Googling Obscurigami Patreon
until
it appears.
Until it appears. Well, should we move on to our random Wikipedia article segment?
This is a segment of the show where we push the random button, and then a page comes up on Wikipedia, and we mispronounce things for about 10 minutes.
So basically the same technique we use for coming up with the other topics we do on the show.
Yeah.
But just
More or less.
just live off the cuff
Mm-hmm.
instead of sort of premeditated.
Yeah. One of our super fans has been asking me how we come up with our topics. So that's part of the answer is we hit the random button.
Well, maybe we'll have to do that for like our, 50th episode Q&A extravaganza or something like that.
That's definitely coming up.
We can answer those
We're
sort
getting
of
really close to 50.
behind the scenes. Yeah, this will be episode 19.
19. That's really close to 50.
It's really close. We're getting right up there. All right.
Especially if you use the dozenal.
Oh boy. So I've hit the button. All right, let's see. I've been pronouncing a lot of drug names recently, so maybe I can take a crack at this. Oxaloglycolate,
Reductase?
reductase, decarboxylating.
I think that's supposed to be decarboxylating.
Oh yeah, you're right. Decarboxylating.
Oxal.
Is it oxal or oxalog?
Oxalog.
Oxaloglycolate. Oxaloglycolate. Reductase decarboxylating. No, we haven't had a stroke.
This is going to be our band name.
In enzymology, an oxaloglycolate reductase decarboxylating
The decarboxylating is in parentheses.
is an enzyme that catalyzes the chemical reaction. And then there's just a whole
And then there's a formula.
Glycerate NADP CO2
I know the CO2.
2-hydroxy 3-oxosuccinate. The four substrates of this enzyme are diglycerate, CO2, NAD+, NADP+, whereas its four products are 2-hydroxy 3-oxosuccinate.
None of this means anything to me.
Yeah. This enzyme is in the family of oxidoreductases. So that's helpful. It's referenced in the book Tartaric Acid Metabolism, number 6.
This enzyme-related page is a stub. You can help Wikipedia by expanding it.
Ben, this is the kind of thing we're going to have to talk about in, 20 or 30 years when we've really just talked about pretty much everything there is to talk about.
When we're done ripping off NPR and Freakonomics and all the podcasts that talk about cool stuff.
We'll have to talk about obscure enzymes.
Ugh.
What a day that will be.
That's I wouldn't mind talking about it if I understood what it was.
Yeah. I mean,
there's nothing in this stuff.
I'm
that tells me
assuming
what it is.
if we looked up
other than that, it's an enzyme.
Each of these, chemicals or something or enzymes or whatever they are. It's got carbon dioxide in it.
Right.
It's got.
I got that.
Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate in it. A lot of chemistry.
If we have any chemists out there listening, we urge you to call the Obscurigami hotline and
1-800 Diclyso cola hydroxy proxy for phosphane. Again, that's 1-800-256-7899-43-9211-84327. Call now.
What if we played that back and your numbers were perfect?
Oh, like that was the
numbers
letters
to the letters that you were saying.
That would be an amazing synchronicity.
It would.
A miracle. The odds are so low. Unless I planned all of it.
Solo?
Yeah, this podcast is, it'll no longer have Ben as a part of it. Come see my podcast, Thomas Talks Obscure Topics. I'm going solo. Bye now.
And if you're interested in finding out more about what I'm up to, you can check out my band, Oxygocarbolite Diaphanous Phosphate number 12.
Ben, if people wanted to know more about that particular enzyme, or really, actually, if people didn't want to know, if people wanted to know more about things that aren't that particular enzyme, but are about this podcast, where
Obscurigami.com
would
be a pretty good place to check out.
We've got show notes on there.
Right, there's some show notes.
Yeah.
Some cool artwork.
Yeah.
You can find us on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast, and a number of pod-catching apps.
You got your Overcast, you got your iTunes, you got your Google Play, you got your Stitcher, you got your Sketcher, you got your New Balance,
and your
your New Balance, your Nike, your. Alrighty.
And you can send us an email at info@obscurigami.com.
Boy, oh boy.
Don't push stop.
Oh.
Okay, now you can push stop.
Textilfiber. Textkritik. Textur. Themsen.